And we're back to freecodecamp. Let us talk about the next one, the Scatterplot Graph. This is my result right here. So we have the graph, we have a tooltip that shows when we hover over the circles, we have our legend. I'm going to put the entire code, this is the example we're going to create, and you can see I have inverted the y-axis, so it goes from lowest to highest in my case, and in the example from highest to lowest, but that's just a difference that's, I think, negligible. But I've put the entire code right here into a code pen so that I can share it with you easily. I don't care about this CSS, JS, HTML separation in CodePen, so I've just put everything right here in HTML. You can copy paste this into a notepad or your code editor and it should run. If you're new to CodePen, here's my profile and you can find all of the certification projects that I've posted here. Just left click on one of these. You can then access it, it's public. And by the way, this is what we're going to do, visualize data with a Scatterplot Graph. That's the official name of freecodecamp. Instead of coding it in real time, I've decided to just copy paste the parts and explain it a little bit. I just make too many typos when I code it in real time, and then I have to go over this. And I can make these videos more concise and a little bit quicker if I just copy paste the correct formatting and the correct code that I've already written. We'll start right here. So we've got an empty boilerplate here, doc type HTML style for CSS, and here's the script. I'm going to use D3. It was given, as far as I recall correctly, by freecodecamp. Let us first start up here with our body. We'll add our H1. Simply the title. Then I've added a couple of div containers for our graph. So here's our chart div container. It contains the SVG scatter plot that we're going to work with an height. Then I've created a div container for a tooltip. We're going to primarily create that using CSS. So we are not going to add content here, but content could go here. And then I have a div container for a legend. And I've styled it here specifically so that we can see the two categories. Red is going to be writers with doping allegations and blue writers without. For now we haven't yet styled it, but the div containers, they exist to the left of the text. Let me simply add the styling in CSS right away. So I'll access .legend color, our class selector, with height, margin, and the colors are given in the div container styles themselves. So we've got that covered. Then let's dive into the script, and afterwards we'll style it a little bit more, but first we'll need our data and the graph. First up, we'll define constants with height, already defined for the scatter plot, 800 times 400, so we use it here again. And margin. I've tested around, played around with it, so you don't have to use the same values here, but they worked for me. Then we have created our SVG element. Right here, this is going to be the scatter plot. It uses the width and height. Afterwards, we've fetched the data. This is also given by freecodecamp, so you can find this link to the data there. And we're going to access it. D is, you could say, the keyword or the key term here for every single data point in the data set. We're going to use year, name, and doping allegations later on, and the time that they've used, or the time that it took them to climb Alpe d'Huez. Here's something that I've added. It's the year 1993, and I've added it so that 1994, which is the first year in the dataset, is not directly on our y-axis. So I've had to squeeze that in, and I've added it obviously to the x scale so that we have the separator to the right of our y scale. Then I had to create the y scale right here, and it uses the time. As I said, I've got it inverted, so for me it goes from fastest to slowest upwards. If you don't want to have that, you can invert it right here. We'll create and append our two x's, so x and y axis. As I've said, x axis is going to be for the time format, the year specifically, and the left axis for the time format when it comes to climbing Alpe d'Huez. So we need minutes and seconds for y and the year for the x-axis. Then I've appended these two. So we have our x and y axis. Once again, the SVG is used, which is our scatter plot. Then we've created and appended the circles, the specific data points for each cyclist. So these are these little dots here. And we have two cases, doping or no doping. I've added it here to our class, then D for the specific data. And then it's a simple, you could say, if statement. So if doping is true, then doping is used. If not, then no doping. I've defined the radius of the circle, which was new, and we've added a mouse over, mouse out effect, which is going to be used for the tooltip. Mouse over is when we are over these circles, mouse out when we're not. Also added a catch for an error. And now the tooltip, which is maybe the hardest part to create or solve, is the function for showing it on mouse over. As I've said, I've used mouse over whenever we are on top of a circle. We have a little bit of a transition with a slow duration so that it doesn't pop up directly. And I've added a style opacity 0.9. This is going to be visible when we have our scatter plot. And just as a reminder, here was our tooltip, class hidden. So by default it's hidden. Or when we mouse over, it's going to be visible. And we want to have year shown, time shown, name shown, and then doping or not. This is all covered here under the HTML. Again, if doping or if d.doping is true, we'll add doping. If it's false, we'll add no doping. And here you can see it has actually added the specific doping cases in these blue circle datas. So I may have to fix that later on because I haven't yet added it. But let us first continue so that we can actually see a scatter plot, because I have to add one more thing. And it's the function to hide the tooltip on mouse out. And again, I've added a transition, and style opacity is now 0. You can see our tooltip, it's not on top of the circles yet, and we haven't yet styled our circles, but the scatter plot is visible. Circles are the correct positions. We have a little bit of gap between the y-axis and 1994, our first year in the dataset. Let us style it first under CSS, and then we'll take care of the tooltip so that we have our doping allegations. First, I've just changed the font family. It looks better when I use Arial sans serif. I've aligned title and chart to center. I've given the scatter plot a border. This is all just optional. Dot stroke, we can't see it yet, but now I'll add the colors to our circles and then it becomes visible. So we have dot doping and no doping for red and blue, and it has a stroke. So as I've said, we've used a simple if statement here. If doping is true, this class will be added, and we've set the fill to red. Therefore these circles are red and the non-doping cases are blue. Also changed the cursor to a pointer when we hover, so every time we are on top of a circle it becomes a pointer. And now the tooltip, so that it's finally on top of the circles. Change position to absolute. Played around a little bit with background color, border, radius, padding, font size. And now you can see this. It's not exactly where our pointer is, but only when we are on top of a circle. Otherwise it's going to be opacity 0. Legend, I've just styled it a little bit so that it's aligned to the left and it looks a little bit better. So once again, y-axis is inversed here, but the rest is exactly as with the example, except for here. Let's go to blue one. The doping case is added for Lance Armstrong here, and I haven't added that yet to my code. Let me do this. Let us check a specific case, maybe Marco Patani here, and I can add that by using d.doping. So doping is given in our data set, and if I add doping allegations plus d.doping, it should be part of our tooltip now. But let me also add a little bit of spacing, and now it looks fine. I'm going to copy this entire code and update my CodePen. If you want to see the code directly, once again, go to CodePen. I'll link to it in the video description, and you can find it entirely under HTML, and it should run. I hope this video was helpful. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.